like, I guess, Hank Greenberg, that was a really obvious one, but, Hank Blaylock, Hank Conger, Hank Bauer. There have been some Hanks, but it's been a while. Like, aside from Hank Blaylock and Hank Conger, we have not really had a good Hank in Major League Baseball in a bit.
And as someone whose legal name is Henry, all my friends, the only people who would ever call me Hank were close friends of mine growing up who knew I hated Henry and knew I hated Hank more. So they would call me Hank because they were just like, he can't stand it. Like,
so what you're saying is this should be the Hank Thomas podcast.
We've been together for several years now, John. I'm going to let it slide for now.
If you go by Hank, then you can be Hank the Tank. It's right there for you.
I could be Hank the Tank. Well, John, we can combine this with Hank Davis. And he's called up. Exciting times for the Pirates. They needed a jolt after a really rough June.
It's been a rough summer for them so far.
Yes. That being said, he's called up, and then there was a really good piece by, I think, Davey. Is it Davey Andrews at Fangraphs?
Yes.
Davey Andrews. Another name where I'm like, this feels like a Red Sox AAA player. Davey Andrews. It just doesn't sound right. But really good piece on Brian Hayes, who has all the makings of a star. It's just like getting the launch angle up and stop hitting the ball on the ground all the time.
Stop it now.
Just stop.
Stop it.
He's doing a little bit better at it. So what have you seen from Davis thus far, and why are you excited? Pirates fans should be excited, and then the piece on Brian Hayes and why he may be turning the corner a little bit here.
So with regards to Davis in particular, anytime you can call up a guy who theoretically at least could be the catcher of the future, you should be excited. Although, for what it's worth, I don't ultimately think that's gonna be the case for Davis because, I mean, the scouting is just not particularly like. It doesn't like his defense. This isn't, and I guess I probably should have started with this. This isn't Adley Rutschman 2.0. This isn't another franchise catcher coming up, despite the fact that Davis was, a number one pick out of a good college program in Louisville. With some very good grades on his tools, but defense is not one of them. In our Pittsburgh Pirates top prospect list that came out back in February, Eric Longenhagen threw a 30 present value grade and a 40 future value grade on Davis's fielding. That's below average. You're not gonna get a particularly good catcher. Although I think there are two reasons that Pirates fans shouldn't really worry too much about this. First is that Davis is a fantastic hitter. You look at the tool grades there: 45 future value on his hit, 70 on his raw power, 60 on his game power. That's an impact bat. If he gets the time and, can establish himself as a big leaguer. The other reason is the better catching prospect in Pittsburgh system, Endy Rodriguez, who grades out as one of the best defending catchers in the minors right now, and a guy who I imagine at 23 years old will probably be up, I'm guessing probably next year. I can't imagine there's necessarily that much of a push for Pittsburgh. I think what the idea is with the Pirates is, their current
Why can't
catching,
he be right fielder? He can just be the long-term right fielder.
Or I guess the idea even with Davis is their current catching tandem is Jason DeLay and Austin Hedges. Neither of those guys are the future in any sense of the word. This gives you some time to throw Davis back there if you want, see how he plays, see if he can handle essentially a major league catching position. Although it's worth noting the 2 games he's played so far, I don't know if he played today, but just the 2 games I have here on his box score, he was the right fielder in his MLB debut. He was the DH after that, and that works too because Pittsburgh's not really getting much of anything, if anything, out of its outfield corners or its DH spots.
He was DH again today in the loss to Chicago.
Okay, so 2 starts at DH, 1 start at right field. Then it's pretty clear Pittsburgh has no real interest in trying him out at catcher right now. They just want him up to be a
which
big
might be
guy.
okay, like you said.
And I think that's fine. If he can solidify himself as a decent, or at least a decent corner outfielder. I mean, the current, who is he displacing? Connor Joe, Rodolfo Castro, Cal Mitchell. Like there aren't really guys there that he's pushing out of the way that you have to worry about. And that goes as far as the future too. There aren't really, there's not a big time corner outfielder of the future still trying to make their way to the majors at this point for the Pirates. They tried Kane and Smith and Jiba for a bit. It didn't work out. Travis Swaggerty, I don't know if he's going to get necessarily another shot. you have to get down into, in terms of finding kind of outfielders of the future, theoretically for Pittsburgh, you're going down into like low A, like low A. I mean, lowest of low A. He's not blocking anyone is the point. And so I think, you might as well see, okay, can we get something long-term out of him if the bat is good and add some offense? Because, this offense is, for as much as it's struggled of late, is not a bad one between Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, although certainly not a piece of the future. Or at least we'll focus on pieces for the future between Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Davis, eventually Edney Rodriguez, eventually much further on down the line, guys like Liover Peguero, or Tamar, much further down the line, Tamar Johnson. There is the core of a potentially good offense there. I think it makes sense to see, though, to bring Davis up now, see can we get anything from him as a DH, as a corner outfielder if need be, and if not, try to start focusing on, okay, what can we do in the trade market maybe to address that if need be? Because the Pirates are still in this race in the NL Central. Like, no one is, with the exception of really, I think at this point, the Cardinals are pretty well out of it. But the Pirates still have, they're 5 games behind Cincinnati now for first place. That's not the end of the world. I mean, our playoff odds no longer like them at all. We have the Pirates with a 5% chance of making the playoffs. That is the lowest of any National League team that isn't at 0 already, aka the Nationals and the Rockies. So the third lowest playoff odds in the National League right now. But I think if anything, if the Pirates can go two ways. They can see where July takes them with Davis in the lineup and be okay. If we can keep afloat, maybe there's some room there to add a bat anyway. And if things keep falling apart, well, then the rest of this year essentially becomes a tryout for Davis to see if he can be a regular presence in that lineup going forward next year and the year after that. So I think Pirates fans should be I think they should be optimistic, at least. If nothing else, they're starting to see what the future of this team looks like. They had that nice run in April. It doesn't look like it's going to turn into a longer full season run, but the important thing now is, okay, who's going to help going forward in the future? And I think, getting Davis up now, letting him see what he can do against Major League pitching, I think is a big step toward that.
Yeah, and it's still a time, if you're a Pirates fan, this is exciting, and you're getting more guys that I think are going to pan out, at least to some extent, right? And then you're actually getting really good. I'm just looking at this lineup, but I'm like, this is kind of like, you see this lineup developing. If they spend a little bit this offseason, which I know it's asking a lot from this group, but like if they do, you can see like the NL Central is winnable, and you look at this lineup, it's one of the better lineups I think in the NL, and it's one of the more upside lineups in the NL across the board. Like Brian Reynolds and company, you look at this, if he's part of the field, like Andrew McCutchen is just, I think, going to be solid until the end of time. So
yeah, that's very much the sense I get. I mean, I'd like to think some of this too is just the balance of being back with the Pirates and just kind of feeding off.
I just think he's going to be solid, man. That guy's just a pro's pro who just knows how to hit enough. Like he's just going to be solid enough. Connor Joe has been good for them. We'll see if that continues on. Jack Sawinski has been good. I don't know. You just look at it and you're like, hey, I mean, there's some stuff here. Mitch Keller might be a really good long-term option. They're like, I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of hedging on the Pirates getting through this. It's just funny because like they're just, you could see how it go the other way. Like, right, when you look at the AL Central versus the NL Central, it's kind of funny if you look at that dichotomy where like the Reds and the Pirates rebuild is kind of looking pretty solid. It looks like they might actually see the light at the end of the tunnel for those two teams. And then you can see the other side in the AL Central where it's like the Tigers and the Royals are on the opposite end, where it's like, are we going to have to trade Spencer Torkelson, who we took number 1 overall in 2020 already? Because like we just can't get over this hump. We can't get
if the Tiger, and granted, like Torkelson has not been anything special so far, but if the Tigers trade Torkelson, that's at what point?
I mean, would that surprise you if they did that this summer, though?
Only in the sense that I don't know that they get better by doing that, because I cannot imagine them getting the kind of return that would actively make them better.
It's like you have to take Javier Baez if you take him. It's like
pretty much, and I think that's kind of the thing. If Torkelson were to get moved, it'd have to be something where like stapled to like Javier Baez, or with Baez stapled to him rather.
We should also mention.